Hello everybody, Zayo from 48 Detailing coming to you from shop number 2 in Surprise, Arizona, and I am joined today with this beast of a beauty, 2023 Dodge Charger Hellcat Redeye in for the works. Now, this is going to be a perfect car for you, our viewers, to see all the processes and procedures that we go through to get a car like this dialed in and protected for our customer. Now, this is going to be our customer's pretty much last Charger Hellcat Redeye that they're going to be owning, and they're going to be keeping it for a very, very long time. They've owned other Hellcats in the past. They got a bunch of classic Mopars, and they want to make sure they keep this one pristine to the best of their abilities. So we went over everything through our initial consultation, from areas of concerns, things that they need to watch out for in the future when it comes to maintaining the vehicle, and much, much more. And I'm going to go through all of that, plus the whole process and procedure of how we get this vehicle prepped, everything from actually prepping the surface that we're working on, to the plotter that we use, to the computer programming that customizes all the patterns so we get the best finish possible for a paint protection film application. But we're going to be going over all that today, plus more. So let's go ahead and jump straight into it, guys, and I really hope you enjoy the video. All right, guys, let's look over the Charger together, and while we're doing that, we're gonna go over the initial consultation process. Now, most of our relationships with our customers start off with the initial phone conversation or an email, and during those conversations, we want to go ahead and ask you some questions. These questions are gonna provide us a better idea of exactly what you're looking for and what your vehicle needs, and also what you want as a customer to make your car ownership experience a lot better and a lot easier when it comes to maintaining the vehicle. One of those first questions we ask is, what color is the car? You know, why is that important? Why is the color of the vehicle important? Well, number one, protecting and maintaining a jet black sensitive paint like this is very different than protecting and maintaining metallic or pearlescent white. It gets dirty faster. It's more prone to scratches, marring, and things like that. And even your wash process has to be meticulously dialed in to make sure you still have that show car finish over your years of ownership. That's why asking you what color is your vehicle is so important. Another question, of course, exact model year, trim of the vehicle, things of that nature, so we make sure we can find the correct outline and patterns for your vehicle, and also make sure we have an understanding what we're getting ourselves into when it comes to removing certain trim pieces of the vehicle. For example, the hood scoops and the hood vents on this Charger we had to remove so we get a nice seamless finish on the application. And those installations and removals change year after year. Like the previous couple of generations and models of the Charger, there was no screw over here on this center hood scoop. This one does have one. The only way we knew that is asking the customer, making sure we do our research, and making sure that we're not just ripping that piece of plastic out and breaking clips and things of that nature. These are all things that we take in consideration when it comes to figuring out exactly what your vehicle needs. And before we get into the next question, look who stopped by, Nora, our customer service advisor. Nora, what is the next question we typically ask customers?
So the next question we typically ask is whether they've ever had experience with paint protection film or ceramic coatings.
And why do we ask that?
This dictates where we start off at in regards to the education of what it is. If somebody's already had previously done paint protection film or ceramic coatings, we don't really need to go too much into that education-wise of what it is, but more so the installation process. Get into all the nitty-gritty details of what we do on our end to create a seamless finish, rather than starting just from the base details, starting from stage one.
And we also love to ask that because, you know, there's a lot of information out there. There's good information, also misinformation. And we want to make sure we have a good baseline of what you as a customer have an understanding of when it comes to this type of technology on a vehicle. I mean, Nora, how many times have customers asked, does a ceramic coating prevent chips and scratches on a car?
Many times.
Not a problem at all, but we want to make sure to educate the customer that no, a ceramic coating does not prevent chips. That's what paint protection film does. Another common thing is that a lot of people think that ceramic coating is applied on the vehicle first and then the paint protection film, right?
It's important to know these things and clarify them to the customer. That way they know what they're getting themselves into. They know what they're paying for.
Exactly. And we're talking to potential customers right now, and that's why we're going over this with you. So That's another great question that we ask. Another question that we ask is, hey, what concerns do you have on the car, right? What concerns do you currently see? Do you have any chips? Do you have any scratches? Nora, on the wide body, what's one of the biggest concerns on it?
The fender flares.
The huge wide body fender flares, right? Those are huge potential of impacts and damage. I mean, even the dealership and the manufacturer install a very small, minuscule piece of film over here on the bottom corner, which does absolutely nothing at all because it doesn't cover this inner portion and it doesn't cover anything else on the fender flare. And we see impacts back here all the time. You can even already see them starting here and there as some little minuscule pitting and chips just after 200 miles worth of driving for the customer. So that's why it's super important to go over these concerns, go over our customers' concerns, and also recommend what we see on vehicles.
Based off our experience.
Based off
what
of
we
our
see
experience.
is the most highly impacted areas on them.
Exactly. So that's super important as well. All right, Nora, and what's the next question that we asked during the consult?
The next question we usually ask is, what are your driving habits?
And why is that question so important?
That question is very important because it allows us to know what areas of coverage are going to be most beneficial per customer.
For example, we do a lot of trucks, and some customers don't drive their trucks off-road or on construction sites. They're just regular daily drivers, grocery getters, and things like that. So there's no necessary need to do a full body PPF application on it. Maybe a full front or a partial plus a ceramic coating is all you're going to need for something like that. But let's say we get a customer that comes in with a Ford Raptor or a TRX.
Take it off-roading all the time.
Taking off-roading all the time.
A full body would benefit them more.
Or lower rockers or something will benefit them a lot. So that's why that question is very important. Another great question that we ask, right, Nora, is how long you keep the vehicle, right? Why is that one important?
That one's very important because we don't want the customer to be purchasing something that is not going to benefit them for the long run.
For example, let's say you have a vehicle, you go through vehicles every 2 years, right? There's no real need to do a 5+ year coating on a vehicle you're only going to keep for a year or two.
Exactly.
So maybe your entry-level bronze package would be a great fit for you, which provides your vehicle anywhere between a year to 2 years worth of protection. Or if you think you might be keeping it for only 2 years, but there's a possibility or a chance that you might keep it a little bit more, maybe our mid-tier coating like our 3-year would be a great option for you. This is everything that we do, everything that we go through during our phone consultation or in-person consultation to make sure that you get everything you need and nothing that you don't.
Exactly.
So for the Charger specifically, what areas of coverage did we decide to go with the customer to make sure that their car ownership experience is top tier and they have an easy experience when it comes to maintaining the vehicle? Well, number one, of course, paint protection film. If this is going to be a daily driver, which it is going to be, we need to protect this paint from chips and scratches here in Arizona. They occur like crazy on cars here on our roads, so we want to make sure that's protected. So we decided to go with a full front application. Why did we do that? Number one, this is a great looking car. There's no need for a partial application with that nasty seam line that runs through the hood and the fenders. Right now, look at Nora shaking her head over there. There is absolutely no need. And number two, you do have these vinyl stripes in the way, and it makes it look even worse and has more potential for lifting and things like that in those seam lines. So the full front application was a must for this vehicle to make sure, number one, that it looks good and it performs good too. Because there's no point in protecting 18 to 24 inches of this portion of the hood, but having the rest exposed and get impacted with damage and chips. What's the point there, right? So we want to make sure we protect that whole area of the hood, the fenders, all that good stuff. Number two, the lower rockers and the wheel flare, the wide body flares, right? The lower rockers on the Charger are painted all the way through, so those have great potential of impacts. And of course, these wide body fender flares over here on the side, those get damaged like crazy without protection, so we're going to get complete coverage on those. We're also going to do the side mirrors and A-pillars, and then also the top portion of this hood as well is going to get covered too for the customer to make sure there's no impacts on the vinyl. Basically, all the front-facing portions of the vehicle and anything that's sticking out on the side are going to get protected from chips and scratches. From there, we have decided also to do our 5 to 7 year ceramic coating application, which is our highest tier gold package. Our gold package is our thickest coating that we offer, over 5 microns thick worth of ceramic that's going to be applied to this vehicle. That stuff is like maple syrup when it's getting applied to paint. Very, very thick, highly concentrated coating. And of course, it's going to provide the best overall protection, some very light to minor swirling and scratch resistance on this sensitive black paint, and of course, ease of maintenance, great anti-static ability, and just a great experience overall. So it's going to make this paint look awesome, deep, shiny, like you can stick your hand through it. It's going to keep it easy to maintain, and of course, it's going to protect everything on the outside from the glass, any type of plastics, the vinyl, the wheels, all that good stuff, from fading, oxidizing, and just overall wear and tear over the years of ownership and drive time. The next thing the customer opted into was our interior coating package because, of course, with all the Hellcat Redeyes, you have this beautiful red leather interior, and even though it's beautiful, we want to make sure we protect it. All these Alcantara surfaces on the inside as well are very key to make sure to get protected. So our interior coating package is going to include full coverage on the inside, fabrics, plastics, leathers, vinyls. Every interior surface is going to get covered with a Dr. Beasley's interior coating line, which is about a 3-year coating on a daily driver, so you don't have to condition or protect your interior surfaces during that time. Keeps them easy to maintain with natural anti-static ability, reduces the friction on the bolsters getting in and out, especially with these seats over here. You could see that the bolsters are very thick. Whoa, the door trying to close up on me. The bolsters are very thick and stick out a lot, so we want to make sure we protect it from individuals getting in and out of the vehicle from any type of wear and tear, and the coating reduces the friction on the seats to your pants getting in and out of the car. So that's super important as well. So now that we went over the consultation questions and in detail what we're doing to the Charger specifically, let's go over vehicle prep and then also how we prepare the customized patterns for the Charger to make sure we get the best overall finish for the installation of the paint protection film. All right, so now it's time for paint protection film prep, and I'm not talking about general vehicle prep. We've already washed the vehicle, we've done a thorough clay bar treatment, we've performed the inspection on the paint, we got all that taken care of. Now it's to prepare the paint, any areas that we're going to apply film to. And the way we're going to do that is with isopropyl alcohol and also a nice lint-free, low-nap microfiber towel. Essentially what we're trying to do is to remove and finalize any type of oil or residue on the vehicle surface where film is going to be applied. We want to make sure that nothing gets in the way of the film application. But more importantly, we're trying to get these edges of the panel nice and tacky for the film to bond properly. Because we wrap edges and there's tension, there's a slight tension on those edges when we wrap underneath the fender or underneath the hood, we want to make sure that film doesn't lift up on us. So what we do is we're going to take our isopropyl alcohol, spray it on our towel, and then we're going to go ahead and thoroughly rub on the edges of the paint, just like this. And what I'm trying to get to, what I'm trying to listen very closely. That is what I'm listening to. That's what I'm trying to look for. I'm trying to get that edge to squeak for me. I'm trying to hear a little squeak, squeak. Just like that. And what that tells me is that that surface, that edge, is prepped properly for that paint protection film to properly bond. Because even though paint protection film does have adhesive on it, of course, that adhesive, if the surface isn't properly prepped and tacky, won't bond properly and will cause lifting in the future. And we see that a lot with many installations on the market. I can't tell you how many times we've had customers come back with their vehicle going somewhere else to get paint protection film done, and something is lifting underneath the hood or near a vent where it's trying to tack on an edge. It's a very common issue. It's typically an easy fix, not a problem at all. It even happens to us every once in a while. We're only human. We try to get every surface prepped as good as possible. Sometimes something does lift. And when that does happen, of course, we address it, but we're trying to make sure we prevent it as much as possible. So I'm going to go across every single edge of the vehicle that's receiving paint protection film and get it all nice and squeaky clean. So while we're prepping up the edges of the Dodge Charger, I want to go ahead and talk to you a little bit about the solution we're using, which is IPA. I'm sure you heard that term before. It stands for isopropyl alcohol, which is one of the most popular, safe to use organic solvents on the market. It is typically utilized on paints, electronics, and things of that nature to go ahead and remove both polar and non-polar residues. A perfect example of a non-polar residue is going to be a wax or oils that are on the edges or on the panels of the vehicle. We want to make sure we remove all that, of course, before the PPF application. And you can see here, we get really in detail when it comes to edges because that's where the PPF needs to properly bond. You could see a lot of that dirt that's coming out of the edges. Even though we thoroughly washed the car, we brushed out all these edges with the car soap solution, got in between all the gaskets and everything, there's still dirt and grime and oils are left behind. That's why this IPA prep is so important on the edges to get rid of all this stuff. And after I finished IPAing the front end, I moved on to the lower rockers of the vehicle and went ahead and removed the dealership installed paint protection film or manufacturer installed film. Now, this is so important to remove. Of course, you want to put film on top of film. It's going to leave a very strange finish behind. And even more important because the film that dealerships and manufacturers use, I mean, sorry to say, it's crappy. I mean, you could see this film is already showing signs of yellowing just after a few weeks, a few months of little to no drive time. And honestly, at the end of the day, it causes more damage than it benefits the vehicle and you, the customer, because what happens most of the time is people forget or don't even realize that that film is on there, and it cracks, it yellows, and it makes it very difficult to remove and sometimes even bonds that paint, causing permanent damage to paint underneath it. And here are just a few examples of how this film looks like after a few months to a few years. Yellowed, cracked, discolored, just leaving an ugly finish behind your vehicle. So if you do get a chance to remove them, that would be my recommendation, and then get some proper quality film installed in those areas. All right, guys, we're about an hour in, finally finished up IPA prepping all the areas of coverage for the paint protection film. During that process, it gives me a better view getting inside all the nooks and crannies of any areas of concern. I found a handful that I'm going to show you real quick. And just to exemplify, even though it's a brand new car, things do happen in a very short period of time. So if you are looking to protect your new vehicle, you want to make sure you get on it as soon as possible because damage does occur very quickly, even before you drive it. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So first things first, the lower splitter protectors, those yellow pieces of plastic that go on the front splitter of the Charger and the Challenger, you can see it left a couple friction points. Bring you in real close right over here on the corner, and then also over here on this corner. So we're going to go ahead and get those polished out just to make sure it's looking a bit better. Same thing over here is a bit of a scratch right there and right there. I don't know if you can see those. Hopefully you can see them on the camera. And then over here, why it's so important to protect the full front of your vehicle, got a couple chips right there, and then a little bit over here as well. Let me zoom in on the smaller ones. You can see them right over here. Going to go ahead and get those touched up for the customer. And of course, as you saw, and we stress this time and time again, new cars don't always mean new. There are always usually things that we have to take care of, light pitting, chips, scratches, things of that nature prior to us applying the film. So in this clip, I went ahead and found the best match for the jet black paint on this Dodge Charger, started touching it up. We do touch up our chips with a syringe so we get a pretty nice finish and not a blotchy look to the chip repair. I let everybody know chip repair is included in your paint protection film package unless your chips are very excessive. And with that in mind, chip repair is not perfect. We're just trying to mask and hide the chip that's there so it's either not noticeable or a lot less noticeable. And after I completed the chip repair, I went ahead and grabbed our battery power polisher to buff off the defects that we saw on the front splitter. All right, guys, so now that the IPA prep has been completed, we can go ahead and look at all the edges we can extend on the vehicle so we can get a better overall finish. So when we're setting up the patterns on the system, we'll take a look at the vehicle, go back to the pattern and extend that edge where we can. I'm gonna show you edges that we look out for that we can extend and that we cannot, to make sure that that film, when extended, can lay down properly and we don't have any lifting issues in the future. All right, guys, so bringing you in on areas that we can extend and areas that we cannot. For example, on the fender over here, we're going to extend this top portion to make sure it wraps on the inside portion of the fender so you don't have any seams on the top portion of the fender. I could tell you right now, we cannot tuck and extend this portion underneath the fender flare over here. It has lifted on us every single time. Essentially what happens is the PPF rubs up against this fender flare, causing friction, and then it lifts that film up. So we actually have to leave a very, very slight gap between this fender flare and the fender on underneath over here to make sure that film does not lift in the future. So little things to take note of. Same thing over here. We cannot extend this little crevice inside the crevice over here because the friction over time will peel that film up with the fender portion and the bumper portion rubbing up against each other. But we can totally extend this portion of the bumper over here. Right over here, we can wrap that on the inside to this point right over here and things like that. Those are the areas I'm looking out for. All right, guys, so here is the program that we use. It is called Core. This is a program with all the vehicles on there, with all the patterns that we go ahead and customize to meet the vehicle's needs. Now, Core is the largest database of vehicles on the market currently. It has also the best patterns on the market as well. There are a few other databases on the market, but we found them not to be as accurate as Core. Core is also the most expensive on the market as well, but is well worth it to have accurate patterns and also have as many vehicles as possible available to us to work with. With that in mind, it's not perfect. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of vehicles on the road today from different years, models, trims, and levels of vehicle. So each one of these vehicles have to be 3D scanned. So the company needs access to every single one of the cars that come up on the market, brand new and also old. So depending on the year of your vehicle, if it just came out or it's coming up very soon, or depending on how old it is, like vehicles that are older than 2006, 2005, there's really not that many patterns available right now because most people don't get paint protection film on them. So with that in mind, even though this is a great program, there are limitations to it. And trust me, as an installer, there's nothing more irritating than printing on hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of film and a pattern not being accurate and having to do a redo or having to do it custom for a customer. So that takes time away from us and also costs more. But, you know, that is the nature of the beast when it comes to these programs. They're not perfect, but they are pretty great at the end of the day. So let's go ahead and give you an example of what we specifically do as installers to make sure we get the best pattern available for you. So first thing we do is make sure to plug in all your vehicle information, 2022 Dodge Charger SRT Hellcat Redeye. So that's all set to go there, already plugged in. We're going to open up that vehicle and we can see it actually has every single area of the Charger available. So if a customer did want to cover the full body of the Charger, we'd be able to do it because we have all the patterns available for it. If something is not available on the system, we have to custom install it. And if that's the case, it does take more time, more material. Of course, it's going to cost more at the end of the day because of that. But let me show you exactly what we do. We're going to go ahead and add on the fenders. I'm going to give you a great example of how we extend the edges on the fenders. We could see that the edge is just standard. There's going to be a seam line on the outside if we leave it like this, but we're going to go ahead and extend it. I'm going to hit this wrap box over here. I'm going to go to the corner of where we can extend that film based off of what we saw on the fender and this corner over here. And you could see it extends that pattern by 0.25 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, which is more than enough for the amount of room that we're working with on the inner portion of the fender. After that, I'm going to also go ahead and extend the portion of where the fender meets the door as well, so that wraps inside. So that's a nice seamless finish right there and right there. Now that is extended as well. So this fender is extended. You're going to not have any seam lines on this fender while this one isn't, and you will have seam lines. So we essentially go through step by step on all the areas of the vehicle, the bumper, the fender flares, each one of the fender flares, which are all separate pieces and all have 3 to 4 corners on them that we need to extend. Every single portion of the vehicle where we can extend, we go ahead and do that. This takes us anywhere between an hour to an hour and a half to do. organize the film as well. So if we add on the bumper, we want to make sure we organize this film in a way where it's efficient for us to go ahead and plot. We don't want too much wasted room, so we waste material. That's something we want to avoid. You can see my efficiency level is 41%, which is pretty low. We try to get it around that 50 to 60%, which is a great percentage of efficiency. After that, we print it out on the plotter, weed out the film, and then we start applying. Now we're going to take what's on this screen and get it printed out on our plotter. This is a Graphtec FC8600. These things brand new, cost close to $15,000 depending on the additions and features that you have to it. Now, rough estimate, if you're looking to get one used, you're probably spending anywhere between $6,000 to $10,000 depending on the size of the plotter. This is the largest one that they offer for the FC8600. We have two of them, one in our shop that we're working in right now, and one in our other shop. So these are very expensive machines. Imagine as a glorified expensive printer that you use at home, except it's made and dedicated for paint protection film and also vinyl and tint. So expensive machine. Does require maintenance on a regular basis. We get ours regularly maintained on a yearly basis. You're looking anywhere between $300 to $500 for maintenance on a plotter, depending on what company you go with and parts and pieces that need to be replaced. But this is what makes the magic happen on getting what's on our screen from that system to the paint protection film to the car that we're working on. All right, let's start the printout. This is honestly the most nerve-wracking part of all this, because these machines, even though they are expensive and they are the best on the market, they do sometimes jam and cause issues during a printout, and that sucks when you're printing out $500, $600, $700 worth of film to go ahead and utilize on a car. So we have to be as careful as possible. We have to watch and babysit the printer as well while it is printing it out, just to make sure we don't have any issues. So let's go ahead and hit that print button and rock and roll. First things first, I want to make sure that we're printing out correctly, and also make sure we're going to have enough film, which we will. Everything's coming out perfectly straight. I'm also going to release some of the static of the film using this duster over here while it's rolling out, because it does cause static when it rolls that film out. We want to make sure we release that so the film does not bunch up on itself and cause jamming issues. Everything is going really nice and smooth right now. Film is coming out nice and straight, and we can see that it's printing out the pattern onto the film. Alright guys, so about 5 minutes later, the plotter has printed out our complete pattern. Again, I'm going to release that static a little bit with this duster. And another great thing about releasing that static is that it won't attract dust and dirt to the film while you're moving it around and you're pulling off the excess around the pattern. So essentially I'm going to find my end point on the screen, the last point of the pattern that has been printed out, and then cut this piece of film off. I want to make sure I don't cut through the film. I'm going to use my lights just to see where that end point is. The end point will be the top corner of the fender, right over here. Pull that film down just slightly and get this film cut out with a blade just to verify that end point. Looking good. Go ahead and cut it out all the way through. Bang, bang. Looking good. Successful print. We're just going to go ahead and roll up this film now, just like that. Alright guys, so we got our table set up over here. This is where we're going to apply our film to, so we can go ahead and remove the excess around the pattern. First thing I need to do is get these tables cleaned off, because there's always ambient dust and stuff like that that lays on them when they're in the storage room. So we want to make sure you get everything clean. The way we do that is we're going to spray it down with a little bit of soap and water. We refer to this as our slip solution in future reference for the rest of the video. Spray it down completely. Clean is the name of the game when it comes to PPF. There are so many steps that we take continuously throughout the whole process to make sure the surface that we're working on is clean and the area around us is clean. I'm going to take my squeegee, swipe it, make sure there's no dust or contamination on there. I'm going to go ahead and squeegee off the surface completely. Just like that. After we have cleaned our area, we lay out our film and start the weeding process, which is just removing the excess scrap or trash film around the pattern that we have printed out. This film is just going to be thrown out into the garbage at the end of the day, and we need to remove it in order to reveal that pattern from the system. After we have removed all the film, we have our patterns. We can cut those patterns out individually from the backing sheet of the paint protection film and then start the application process of the film to the vehicle. Now, weeding is a very delicate process. It does take time to make sure you don't, on mistake, remove a piece of the pattern or cut through a piece of the pattern or tear a piece of the pattern. So you just want to make sure you take your time with it. You can see I'm using a LED headlamp so I can see the edges of the pattern as I'm cutting, because the last thing we want to do is try to cut scrap and cut through a bumper or cut through a fender and have to print it out again. And here is how the sheet looks after all the excess has been removed around the pattern. All right, so the last thing we need to go ahead and get measured out is the hood application. So I want about 3 inches on each side of excess material. So essentially I'm going to measure at the widest point, and that widest point is going to be right around the center with the elevation over here of the bulge near the hood scoop. And the reason why we want a little bit of excess on each side is because we need some material to hold on to when we adjust this film and get it stretched over. All right. So we're going to need about 69 to 70 inches worth of film. Essentially, I want to leave about 1 inch on each edge so we can go ahead and tack down. So it'll be around 70 inches worth of film. This will allow us enough material to grab onto, to slightly stretch, to create just some slight tension for these valleys to lay down during the application. So 70 inches is the number we're looking for a 60-inch roll of film from side to side. All right, guys, so we're going to be applying the hood right now. First thing we did was went ahead and cleaned off the table we're working on, cleaned off the top of the film. Now we're going to flip this film over so we can do the removal and also clean off the hood as well. Josef is going to spray down the hood with our slip solution, get that cleaned off with a squeegee. Nice and clean. We're going to spray down the hood again. Got the hood cleaned up, got our PPF laid out. We're going to remove the backing. Josef, your squeegee. Oh, we're going to remove the backing from the paint protection film and start applying it to the hood of the Charger real quick. The way we do this, we actually have the backing on top, well, the PPF on bottom. This is going to be the easiest way to remove the backing, hassle-free, and then we're going to try to get the film on the hood as quick as possible to prevent any contamination. One of us are going to spray, the other person is going to go ahead and remove the backing.
We're going to go ahead and spray it down just one more time.
Yep. So now what we're going to do is we're going to line up the film onto the hood, and we're trying to create a little bit of tension to remove this excess film that's in the center over here. This is referred to as the four-corner method. Essentially, we're creating 4 hands with the fenders and the bumper so we can have a proper stretch on this film so the valleys can lay down and we can get everything squeegeed out. So what we're going to do is I'm going to line up one side over here and create a hand on this corner so it grabs a hold of the film. Just like that. There's my hand right there, and Yosef's going to do the same thing on his side. So now we're going to go ahead and soak underneath the hood. Make sure there's plenty of soap solution. Just like that. Now we're going to stretch this film again, just slightly, so we have enough tension on these valleys for them to lay down. It's a really fine balance. We're trying to remove the fingers over here in this valley and get a little bit of tension over here so this can all lay down as well. And this is what I like to call reading the film. We're trying to read how the film is reacting towards the tension that we're giving it. So I'm going to do my side first. I could see right here, really good amount of tension, but I also need to remove the fingers over here. Yosef, start pulling that way. Okay. Check the tension over here. Perfect. It's not a trampoline. I'm trying to avoid so much tension where the film feels like it's trying to bounce back up on itself. And now we're going to try to remove these fingers over here. Let me see. No, we're going to pull the center now. See how it's gone? All right. That's good. That's good. So now I'm testing all the tension points, making sure there's not too much where we can't lay things down. And this is all just a feel thing at this point. I just got to feel the film, make sure that this film is going to lay down properly. And it does seem like everything's feeling good. Not too much tension, but just enough. All right, we are feeling pretty good. Spray down the top portion of the film. And then we're going to try to squeegee all the excess water out of the areas that are laying flat. This is called glassing over the film. We're trying to make it look like glass, get all that water out. And forgive us for not talking and explaining too much because we're just trying to focus on getting this valley down. We want to make sure you don't cause any rippling effects inside the film or any type of distortion with the stretch. So now, just like Yosef did on that side, I'm going to go ahead and make a cut to release the tension over here. You see, as that film started to lay down, it's going to cause tension in this portion of the valley over here. So we're just going to go ahead, make a cut around, leaving plenty of excess on the sides. Just like I was explaining to Yosef, in case if there's a little bit too much tension and it tears, it doesn't tear on the portion of the hood. Just on the inner portion of the vent, which we're going to cut away anyways. Now to get this valley down, I'm going to use a little bit of hot water, just like Josef did on his side. How you doing over there? Good?
I'm good, yeah.
And I'm going to heat up the film as well so it becomes far more flexible on me. Now this film will be able to lay down much easier because it's heated up. And we flushed out that slip solution, which is preventing it to tack along the edge. A little more hot water here. Just like that. Now I got this little valley over here. There's a lot of tension on this valley just because of this excess. I'm going to release that tension. You see that tension right there? I'll push this down. It's not going down. All I'm going to do is cut this excess film off. And it's going to release a lot of that tension for me, so I can lay that valley down much easier. Just like that. Spray a little bit of hot water. Now we're going to be able to see this go down. All right, guys, so the hood has been installed. We had a great installation overall. Little to no contamination. I did have one speck on the passenger side that we were able to lift that film and remove prior to getting everything tacked down. But besides that, doing an inspection on the rest of the hood, we found no other contamination that we're dealing with, which is always a great thing when you're laying down a $200-300 piece of film. That's the last thing you want to see on a vehicle, especially one like this. You want to make sure you have a good installation without any contamination. Of course, there's limitations on what we can do. We live on planet Earth, and you've seen the amount of steps that we take to prevent any contamination underneath a film. With that in mind, before we make the cuts on the film, around the vinyl, around the vents, all the access around the hood as well, we want to let this film sit for a few minutes. Reason being is if I just jump in and start making these cuts and that film has not properly aired out along those edges and tacked properly, it's going to cause a rippling effect when I drag that knife over the film. And that's going to cause a jagged edge to my cut. So we want to give this film some time. We got to be patient with it, let it do its thing, make sure everything is tacked properly before we make our cuts. Now, after that, I'm going to make my cuts, remove all that excess, and then this hood is going to be pretty much all set to go. Now it is time for one of the most difficult and also painstaking parts of paint protection film application, and that is the trimming of paint protection film. Now, this is where the importance of skill, knowledge, experience, and the right tools come into play. It is the make it or break it when it comes to paint protection film, because up to this point, you can be a great installer of film, you know how to print it out, you know how to customize the patterns, but if you do not know how to properly score film and safely score it, you're going to be left with a lot of issues, and issues that are unreversible. Now, a lot of PPF technicians say that they are cutting your film. In reality, if they're doing it properly, we are not cutting the film, we are actually scoring it. Now, what do I mean by that? Just like your paint system, paint protection film is created in multiple layers. You have your backing, your adhesive layer, your TPU polyurethane portion of the layer, and then you have your ceramic top coat, and then your laminate on top. When we are putting a knife to the film, we are actually only cutting through those top few layers of the film. We are not penetrating all the way through, at least when done properly, and that is what we refer to as the process of scoring. After properly scoring film, you are able to tear that score away from the material you want to leave on the paint. The best way I can describe it in real world terms, maybe to something that you have seen before, is perforation or scoring on paper. Have you ever seen those pieces of paper you get from your bank or your W-2 or W-9 form in the mail where it says bend and tear here? That paper has not been completely cut through. It's actually scored or perforated. And that's exactly the process that we're doing with paint protection film as well, to safely score that top layer, create a little bit of tension on that scored area, and then lift the film that we do not want from the area safely. And the blades and tools we utilize for this scoring practice are not your typical blades that you can go purchase from Home Depot or your local department store. These blades are made specifically for specific types of things, such as scoring. We purchase our blades from the manufacturer NT Cutter, who has been specializing in blade manufacturing since the 1950s. They make blades for multiple types of industries, everything from automotive to arts and crafts, but also medical grade blades for life-saving surgery. While a set of your normal construction blades from Home Depot or Walmart will cost you anywhere between $2 to $3, these NT Cutter blades specifically made for these types of applications, made out of carbon and ceramic, are anywhere between $20 to $30 for a set. So you could see the massive jump in price for precision blades that are required for the best overall cut and finish. But of course, no matter how good the tools or how expensive the blades, if they are in the hands of an inexperienced and not well-trained technician, none of it matters. And that's why we stress so often through all of our content, our over-the-phone conversations, and in person, that you should take your time and perform the due diligence in making the right purchase for you and your vehicle. And that goes farther than just typing up a company's name and looking up their Google reviews. Go to the shop, talk to the people, watch the installers, see if the shop is clean or not. We are always happy when customers come to the shop and they're curious about the work that we do, because at the end of the day, we take pride in what we do. We have fun when we're performing these types of services, and we love sharing that with customers that are interested and care about it for their vehicle, right? So little things like, hey, can I see a finished vehicle? Can I see you guys apply a piece of film? Can we apply a piece of film to my car just to see how it looks on my specific color? Can you show me how you score the film and properly cut through it without cutting into the paint? Little details like that we are more than happy to do and spend that time with you to make sure that you're making the right purchase for yourself. And taking all of that in consideration, that's why we also stress that chasing the price when you're calling companies and doing your shopping is not always the best thing to do, because you can get a really low price on a PPF application, a really low price on a ceramic coating application, but if one little detail was not stressed or was not paid attention to, or the technician didn't have enough experience on, that can completely ruin a complete installation. And it can even be irreversible, such as cutting into the paint or causing damage to trim pieces and things of that nature. Not to say that we are perfect. We are all human. We have all made mistakes, but we have certain systems and procedures and things here at our shop that make sure we prevent them as much as possible. And now that we finished trimming up the hood, it is time to apply the rest of the paint protection film to the Charger. And while we do that, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of background on what paint protection film really is, the technology and the material behind the service itself. So paint protection film is made out of TPU. You've probably heard me mention that material before in other videos. It is thermoplastic polyurethane. TPU is a group of thermoplastic elastometers with amazing elasticity, resistance to abrasion, chemical resistance, and also prevention of environmental damage. There are hundreds of types of TPUs on the market that are in everything from phone cases to rubber compounds and tires to the actual film we're using on this car. The most popular types are polyester, polyether, polycarbonate, and also what we use on vehicles, it is polyurethane. That is what paint protection film is made out of. Now, polyurethane is really unique. It's got a lot of advantages to it. Some of the biggest advantages to polyurethane material is the high abrasion and wear resistance, the high resistance towards UV rays and radiation, the extremely high elasticity, up to 800% stretch, and high tensile strength as well. Another cool thing about this material, it can be modified with different colors and chemical compounds. For example, we have colored and fashion film, and then it can also be utilized in ceramic format with our ceramic self-healing top coats as well. Now, just like everything in the world, it has its advantages, but also some disadvantages. If you want to learn more about the details behind TPU, how paint protection film is manufactured, and all the nitty-gritty details of paint protection film, if it's right for you, make sure to check out our video series, The Detailed Dive into Paint Protection Film, here on our YouTube channel. I'll leave the link in the description below. All right, guys, so paint protection film is set to go. It has been finalized after multiple hours of painstaking trimming around the vinyl and final touch-up and heat locking all the edges of the film. That's all prepped up and ready to go. Now it's time for the coating application. But before we do that, we got to wipe down all the slip solution residue that's on the rest of the vehicle, and then also perform our light primer polish, which gets this paint ready for the coating application. The light primer polish adds gloss and shine, removes very light swirls and marring from the vehicle surface, and also sets anchor points for our coating to properly bond to. Now, what most other detail shops substitute for the light primer polish is a hot chemical wipe down. And what I mean by that, a hot chemical wipe down is a chemical like a heavy solvent or coating prep that essentially flashes or swells the paint chemically, so it creates a heat reaction to open up the pores, remove any residue and oils from the surface for the coating to properly bond to. Now, that works fine and dandy, but it does swell that paint, which reduces the gloss and shine and also mars up the surface, because swelled up paint is soft paint, and when you drag a towel across the surface, it actually induces scratches and swirls to the paint. So we try to avoid that at all costs, right? That's where our light primer polish comes into play. Not only does it add further protection to our ceramic coating by increasing the thickness with the ceramic that's inside the primer, but it also adds gloss and shine safely, and then also prevents that flashing or that swelling of the paint, all while removing some light swirls and scratches on the vehicle surface, which is super important for a jet black paint like this. So let's jump straight into the process, guys, and get going with our coating application right after that. All right, so let's jump into the priming stage of the coating application. So traditionally, you would compound and polish the paint and then use that hot chemical or solvent to go ahead and strip off all the waxes and oils that are in those compounds and polishes. All right, that's a traditional old school way of doing things. Not only do you typically remove more paint because of the really harsh abrasives in those compounds and polishes, but you're also expanding and contracting that paint as well with that hot chemical that you're utilizing to remove those waxes and oils, right? Well, that's where the NSPs, the nano surface primers, step in. These primers are abrasives and transfer solutions that are completely created out of ceramic. There are no organic substances such as waxes and oils inside of them. So not only are you refining the paints, removing scratches, removing swirls, but you're also leaving a foundational layer of ceramic on the surface for a ceramic coating to be applied to and bond to properly. So with the NSP line, we actually get thicker, more durable, and glossy coatings prior to our coating application. And what I'm doing right now is going around the vehicle, performing a one-step polishing stage with the NSP 9.5, which is the mid-tier primer from Dr. Beasley's. And this is be considered a medium cut polish or primer. After this, we can jump straight into our coating application. And of course, with our coating applications here at 48 Detailing, what makes them different from the rest is that we actually use products that were developed for our environment. Many coatings on the market for mass manufacturers don't really have any testing in the harsh environments such as Nevada, Arizona, and things of that nature. While we have seen our coatings in person last upwards of 3, 4, 5 years, depending on which coating you decide to go with. Now we have 3 main coating options. We have our 1 year, our 3 year, which is our most popular, and then our 5 to 7 year coating. Each one of those coatings do have a plus sign at the end of them. The 3 year offers a 3 year warranty, but of course with proper maintenance and regular drive time, you can get upwards of 4 years worth of durability out of that coating. Another great thing about our coating line is that you get complete coverage on the outside. Unlike other detailing companies in the area where you have to add your glass, add the plastics, add the wheels, the price starts to rack up from there. So we made our packages all-inclusive where we coat your paint, we coat your glass and plastics and your wheel faces so you have complete coverage, because what's the point of having beautiful paint but then your plastics start to fade after a couple years, right? We want to make sure that your whole vehicle is protected from top to bottom. And of course, even though your film does have a self-healing ceramic top coat straight out of the box, we do also coat the film as well. We're already there. The bottle of coating is open. We don't want it to go to waste. We want to make sure we utilize as much as we can on the vehicle. Not only will it add more gloss and shine to that PPF on your vehicle, but also add an additional layer of protection for that film as well. Here is a great clip of an application of our ceramic coating. You could see it goes on nice and thick on the vehicle. Section by section, we will create a box and then we'll go ahead and fill in that box in cross-hatching motions, making sure not to miss any areas of coverage. After we have applied the ceramic coating, we will wait a few moments to let the coating properly bond to the vehicle's paint. We don't want to go directly into just buffing it off. After that, we will level it with our initial leveling towel, and then we will move on to our final buff off towel. So essentially what happens is the actual ceramic, the SiO2 molecules will float downwards, I shouldn't say float, will drag downwards from the top layer to the bottom, bonding to your paint, and then we remove any excess that's on top. Then it will have a chemical reaction and semi-permanently bond to your vehicle's paint, offering you that really long-lasting, durable protection.
All right, guys, 4 days later, and the Charger is protected from top to bottom. Not only is she protected, she is looking amazing. Let's go ahead and summarize everything we did. We did a lot to her, so let's go over that. We did the full front paint protection film application, additions of the front high impact area of the roof, lower rockers, and then also all the fender flares all the way around the Charger. So anything that's going to get impacted with rocks in the future is protected now with our 8mm ceramic self-healing top coated film. On top of that, went ahead and did a little bit of paint restoration for the customer, got that dialed in, and then we applied Hemsha, which is our 5 to 7 year ceramic coating, 5 microns thick, amazing gloss, amazing shine as you can see, and of course went ahead and topped it off with our interior coating package as well, so that beautiful red leather on the inside of this Charger is protected for years to come. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know if you have any questions, and if you are interested in protecting your vehicle as well, feel free to comment below or message us at info@48detailing.com or just give us a call at 623-400-8880. Always here to help you guys out. Have a great one, and we'll talk soon.